Yeah, let's go
Mike
straight to Mike.
Scarborough, Tiger Bait, joins us on 365 Sports after a little shout out to our last guest. Hey, man, how you doing, sir? So you get on, you're getting ready to come to your segment, you see him, and all of a sudden you go, oh, man, I think I know him.
You know what's funny is if I dig in that filing cabinet behind me, I think I have the commemorative puck from the opening night of the Ice Gators. You have no idea how big ice hockey was in the Cajun Dome in Lafayette, Louisiana in the 90s. He was right. The attendance was off the chain.
Ever any chance of an NHL team down in New Orleans?
I don't know about that. They got a problem with the Pelicans and the Saints.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough.
All right, Mike, we mentioned Haulcy earlier, the commitment to safety from Houston. Let's get into that first and then eventually get into a lot of things. LSU football, and as always, thanks for your time. He was the top-rated safety in the portal. He was really good at Houston. Well, how much of a win was this to what LSU needed as they continue to fill up their roster?
Look, they had the advantage of going through spring. We thought maybe that if there was a good one in the portal, they would go get one. We also thought they would go get a defensive lineman, which they did. And so LSU has spent a lot of money, well into the 20 millions since December, and went heavy in that portal period, depending on where you look and people rate and transfer portal classes. LSU's number one by many and no less than 2 or 3. And so it was a nice get. LSU has still a question mark. It's safety. That's probably the biggest question mark on defense. Of course, cornerback was a big question mark, but they addressed that with Delane from Virginia Tech. And you got Jackson from Florida to go along with Stamps and others. So they really have rebuilt that defense in a big way and filled a lot of shoes that where they had question marks. It's still look, you can have a nice transfer portal class on paper, and what kind of hit rate do you need? Do you need 35, 45% of them to pan out, or do you end up in a bad way like Florida State last year, where your transfer portal moves really cost you bigly?
So, Mike, that 20 million mentioned, is that the whole roster, or is that transfer portal you're talking about there?
That's transfer portal.
So you saw the story last week about Texas and the $35 million roster, and there's a lot of people that are like, no, that's not completely accurate. All that. I didn't balk at it just because it's like, well, first of all, you can do that if you want to. It's nothing illegal nowadays. And second of all, there's all sorts of crazy numbers being thrown around. So if they're spending 20 on the transfer portal alone, a $35 million roster is not completely out of the question, is it?
Well, and look, I might be wrong. It could be 25 and a half or 27 for total, but it's up there. So I tend to think if the number's 35 at Texas, it would sound right that LSU would be 25 to 27, 28. So that I wouldn't bat an eye at that Texas number either.
Mike Scarborough, TigerBait.com with us on 365 Sports. Where is it if LSU doesn't win 8 or 9 games or even more? What is in store for Brian Kelly?
Just an ugly offseason. He's not going anywhere. But it will be ugly with the fans. And it'll be ugly with the fans in week 1. And look, I looked at Joel Klatt's video this morning. I think y'all talked about it. Got Clemson in the top 5, LSU at 7. And so that's your opener on the road at Clemson. And you lose that one, that'll be 6 straight opening season losses for LSU dating back to the Orgeron era. That is insane. And of course, you have to go on the road to Alabama. You get Oklahoma at home. The schedule does not do you any favors this year. I tend to think in the 9-3, 8-4 realm. You lose the opener, and you could be looking at 8-4, and that would make for a very bad offseason.
Well, Mike, especially the expectations, not only spending, the amount that you mentioned, but they got a quarterback now that's all over these mock drafts. I mean, the draft ended a week ago, and these things are starting to come out. I saw Todd McShay's got him as the number 1 quarterback. I think the only other guys that are really being mentioned in that first round already are like Cade Klubnik and Lenoris Sellers. And there may be like Drew Aller, I think, from Penn State's the only other one. But, man, you talk about a guy who the hype machine's in full force already. Just can you kind of describe that for Garrett Nussmeier?
Yeah, and I think it's perfectly fine. I think it's legit. I think Nussmeier's that good. He needs to cut his interceptions in half. I think I predicted last year he'd have 10 or 12, and that's exactly what he had. I think he needs to cut that number in half. I think he's going to be buoyed big time by what they did in the portal at wide receiver. And I think had he had Chris Hilton healthy all last season, and y'all got a good look at him in the bowl game, he's a difference maker. If he picks up where he left off and is healthy all season long, and then you add Nick Anderson and Brown from Kentucky to go along with Aaron Anderson and so forth, this offense is going to be pretty damn spectacular. But again, the big question mark, you lose some NFL draft picks on that offensive line. O-line is the big question mark on offense. I think they're going to get rid of the ball pretty quick. I think Bauer Sharp, who they got from Oklahoma, had an unbelievable spring at tight end. So you have him to go along with Trey'Dez Green. I think they're going to do a lot of stuff with Bauer Sharp in the short passing game. If they do some of the stuff we saw them do in spring practices with him, I like some of the new wrinkles. But bottom line is LSU's running game is left a lot to be desired. That offensive line has got to do a much better job in the running game.
So is it the line or the backs that they have aren't good enough to do anything with it?
Well, look, we can sit there and say Josh Williams wasn't this or that. Caden Durham was a freshman and hurt and had dislocated toes on his foot. He's 100% now. Caleb Jackson is still learning the position. Some people question his vision. But what they've got now, and with JT Lindsey coming in, the true freshman Harlem Berry, who was fantastic throughout the spring, you're not going to be able to say, the running back group either doesn't have the speed or doesn't hit the hole or lacks vision. It's going to be on the offensive line. So I think there's a lot of pressure on LSU's offensive line coach, Brad Davis, to get that group up to speed.
I don't want to bring the mood down entirely, but it was, of interest, Kyron Lacey and that story just a few weeks ago, his very unfortunate and sudden passing. Just what's it been like there? What was it like there in Baton Rouge when that news hit, and just kind of the remembrance and just all that came with that, unfortunately?
Yeah, it's just a sad thing. I think a lot of us who interviewed him and interacted with him, some in recruiting, friends that I knew in Lafayette that dealt with him when he was a Raging Cajun. We knew he had his ups and downs, but he was a super kid, and that's just it was an unfortunate situation all the way around. There's a lot of sad folks around here, and everybody's still keeping his family and friends in their thoughts and prayers.
That bowl game down in Houston, they were just the weapons that Nussmeier had, plus he was brilliant. But Baylor was able to throw the ball. Robertson had a huge game. It came down to maybe hit this and that. LSU was better. Don't get me wrong. So what have they improved? What happened to them? Because we hear about the Baylor secondary. My God, it was torched. But is that LSU? Have they improved that too? And that, I guess,
that's why that's why they went in the portal real big at DB to go along with, the 5-star Pickett that they got high school signing class. You got Stamps back, so that's why they went and got guys like Haulcy and Mansour Delane from Virginia Tech, Jakeem Jackson from Florida. That secondary absolutely needed to be addressed. And they've got to get coached up. It's on Corey Raymond and that staff. But I think the defensive line, the edge rushers are going to be fantastic. I know they gave this offensive line that, again, they have question marks, fits all throughout the spring. And the linebacker group looked fantastic in the spring, and they were doing it without Harold Perkins and Whit Weeks participating. So that group has some depth. And so I'm probably defensively, I'm most excited about the edge rushers.
Well, I mean, Perkins was a star his freshman year, and then all of a sudden, would they play him out of position and they kind of have him back to where he needs to be, or did he himself maybe
Yeah,
get a little too comfortable?
I think I'm more excited about what Blake Baker plans to do with him this upcoming season than the previous 2 years. And so, and look, I mean, the fact of the matter is that that linebacker group performed well without him last year. I think with what they say they're planning on doing with him, I like what they're going to where I think it's going to be a better spot for him.
Mike, I know this is kind of a question I guess we could ask closer to the game, but it's the very last game of the year. Have you ever been to Norman for a football game? And I know they didn't play at Texas last year, but it had me wondering, what is, in your opinion, as a guy who's well-traveled, the best environment in the SEC? So I guess a two-part there. Have you ever been to Norman for a game? And what, in your opinion, is the best road game in the SEC?
I haven't. Man, that's tough because, man, Texas A&M is a great venue with what they do. It's kind of weird not having Auburn on the schedule. I think Auburn doesn't get the credit. Tuscaloosa, although it's post Saban, I think maybe that's fallen off a bit. The Swamp isn't near what it used to be. Don't play Georgia a whole lot. That's got to be tough. Man, there's just a lot of great venues. I mean, Fayetteville can be. But I'd probably say A&M at A&M. The home team seems to always win that one. I might give it to Texas A&M right now.
Yeah, I think that's a fair one. I think you're going to enjoy Norman a lot when you get to go. I've been to a few games there. It's a lot of fun. I think it fits in quite nicely with the SEC. So, and Texas is great as well.
Well, yeah. And look, and LSU, of course, laid the wood to them. But I'm like, man, you don't understand. You did what you did to Oklahoma last year, but you saw what they did to Alabama when they had them at home. I think they're going to be a different animal playing them at home. That's why I think this schedule is so difficult. You open up at Clemson, you get Florida at home. South Carolina has got a lot of excitement coming into this season. You get them. You got to go at Vanderbilt. Okay, that's not a walk in the park, is it? At Vanderbilt now,
not with Pavia, the quarterback, right now.
Right?
Right.
So A&M at home, at Alabama, and then you end at Oklahoma. So if you lose the opener to Clemson, you're absolutely behind the eight ball. If it's playoffs or bust, it's going to be very difficult to get there.
Mike, who has the most overrated stadium in the SEC?
I'm gonna go with the Florida Gators. It's not what it used to be.
Yeah. Well,
I talked to some Florida people. They say it's gotten way too corporate. But it used to be, 20 years ago, you'd say it was either between LSU or Florida.
Yeah. Well,
Florida might not even be in the top 6 anymore.
Yeah, they aren't what they used to be. Although Lagway, man, this kid he's special. Maybe he brings that magic back to the Swamp.
Yeah. He got the win for LSU. Helped Napier get that one last year.
Is there somebody in the middle of the pack, and that would include perhaps Florida, Auburn, South Carolina, and South Carolina with Beamer has been really, you've been seeing them right on the edge. Any of those teams, Missouri, they've got 11-2, 10-3, whatever it is. Can any of those teams break that top level of Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Tennessee without Nico? Who knows what's going to happen with them? Can they break that bubble?
I don't know. Is South Carolina maybe that sleeper team? I mean, it's all about the quarterback. If he's healthy, he's dangerous. And without having pulled up their schedule and looked at it in the way it sets up, but I do think it's going to be difficult for anybody to break through from that top level. I mean, I'm sitting here talking about LSU possibly going 8-4.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of people have LSU as a top 10 team. I'm mainly there because of the schedule. It's we're back in this routine where, typically LSU's. I think the Clemson game just really does not do them any favors, and now when you've got Oklahoma to end things, I don't know. Maybe you can lose the Clemson game and lose one other one, but you're really going to have some health and really stay healthy.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate your time, my friend. Great to see you.
All right. Anytime. Talk soon.
Tiger Bait, Mike Scarborough with us on 3